How is it going, YouTube? Malagant here. Thank you for joining me. We're going to be looking at the new constellations coming up with the Forgotten Gods. As I'm making the video, the game is not out yet. We are about like a month almost away from it, I believe. Yesterday they have announced that the Forgotten Gods is going to be launching the last week of March. At the very least, we have that going for us. Not necessarily a specific date yet, still not there. But it is, you know, it's going to be the last week apparently of the March, so that's alright. As long as it's going to be a good one, I don't necessarily mind the wait, to be honest with you. Now, that said, yesterday, I think at this time of the day, they let Dammit, the creator of Grim Tools, update Grim Tools with the new constellations and the new items as well. If you would like to check it out, you should definitely check out grimtools.com. Now, in the video, we're going to be checking out the new constellations that's coming with the Forgotten Gods. In fact, it's going to be my first look. I did skim through again right before the video. As I said like before, I'm not necessarily a playtester, so I don't have my hands on Forgotten Gods, so this is going to be curious for me too. So we're gonna check out the Scarab first. That is a blue requirement and paying back blue and yellow, just like the Panther and the Stag. Actually, it is exactly the same. In this case, it's not exactly the same, I should say, because like it is starting with blue in this case instead of starting with yellow, but the payment is the same. And remember, when you get something like this, you could always remove the crossroads, so it turns out to be the same value that is, you know, being gathered out. That said, it starts with really something interesting. It starts with armor. Even though it is like a low you know, number over here, it is like 20. This type of thing actually like adds up, and this is not going to be the only thing either. They have something else over here called Mantis. It is yet another new constellation for us that is also capable of giving you 20 more armor. Now, believe it or not, that is 40. if you add 20 plus 20, I do believe that adds up to 40. Now, I want to talk about something over here. If you're not familiar with the armor rating, it is ridiculously powerful. One of these things in Grim Dawn is that, like, armor rating, that is, you could definitely, like, in the late game especially, you could definitely feel how tanky you're getting by, you know, stacking that armor up. And how do you, you know, make it work? If you pay attention to just like mouse overing over here, it says like head, shoulders, chest, arms, and legs and feet. It doesn't mention the belt, right? So what the belt does is that even though belt is also giving you armor rating, it doesn't really mention it. So when the opponent is hitting you, it doesn't, you know, the opponent is not capable of hitting you at the belt section. So what belt does is actually the armor value that is coming from the belt is adding to every single one of those individually. So just like the constellations fact over here. So this 20 is going to be adding to your like chest armor, is going to be adding to your head armor, and yada yada. You probably get the point. And that one is not going to be alone. You will most likely take the Mantis as well if you're going for some sort of like a, you know, armor stacking. That being said, that is also why, you know, Menhir 3.0 was like ridiculously powerful. It still is, if you could build up to it. That was a little bit of like armor coming from the wire as well, but wire is really hard to build up to. I have never managed to get the wire, never seen the points, but then again, I didn't necessarily play a trauma either. I do believe it was a trauma build. Also a shield block apparently. Yeah. Is it trauma? There's some retaliation to the attack as well. That's a new thing. Yeah, they have that. They adding stuff like that. Retaliation to attack. What do you think about this, guys? Retaliation damage being added on top of, you know, the attack value of some spells. It is like really interesting. So that being said, back to this value of the armor over here. Now that like I explained how it actually works, I want you to understand that, like, you know, just 20 coming from like a tier 1 constellation is like ridiculously strong, especially for the early game. It's gonna make you really powerful. It will let you ignore that much more upgrades at the very early game, especially. And it will also heavily buff the leveling gear, which is the locker. Arguably the only downside of that gear, arguably as I said, is the fact that it doesn't have any armor at all almost. But thanks to, you know, I have been able to, and I have been, I think, preferring also to level up with locker set all the way up to level 94. At around like level 85, 88ish, it does become a little bit questionable for sure. Because like you become too squishy. But thanks to stuff like Obelisk, you're able to, you know, maintain okayish armor. At the very least, you're not getting one shot, and it's reliably being able to complete. Now with the, you know, Scarab, with the Mantis, with the additional armor, it's definitely a buff to that set as well. Okay, that was me. Don't freak out. The secondary point of it is going to be shield damage block into bleed resistance, armor percentage, another shield damage block percentage, acid retaliation, and reduced stun duration. Overall, I would say this is a really valuable node. There's going to be so many cases at the very least while leveling up that I'm going to prefer, excuse me, Scarab over Stag or Panther. Definitely, there's going to be some cases. Now, from there we could jump into Mantis. The first node was like some pierce damage. It's alright. Elemental resistance, pretty good for leveling up, definitely. A little bit of HP, definitely. Defensibility percentage, and pierce damage, flats and percentage as well. Quite good tier 1 again, and it pays off itself. You can definitely remove this out. And it also pays off a little bit of purple as well. This is quite unique, isn't it? Purple plus red in this case. If I am not mistaken, I could definitely make a mistake like this. I wouldn't mind it either. Feel free to correct me if that's the case, but that's alright. The third constellation that we're going to talk about, I do like both of the additions over here. Both of the tier 1s, I really like it. Let's check the Night Talon over here. It's giving you Cunning, all damage to the pets. Lightning resistance, that's questionable. Reduction in electrocute duration, that too. Lightning resistance to the pets. Do we have any constellation in this game? Gives you split resistances like this. This one's giving you double, so cold lightning is missing the fire part. Yeah, there are actually some splits apparently, not that say those. Yeah, there are some splits. There are some splits. All right. So apparently I don't value them at all because like I didn't even, you know, consider them. I'm going to go ahead and say this is much more, a little bit like character buff, much more of a pet buff constellation. So unless you're playing like a pet build, I'm not necessarily thinking that you would be going for this, but time will tell. Time will tell. So I am kind of valuing the other tier 1s over the Night Talon so far, as you can see. It's an okayish one, I suppose. Especially the fact that like it's giving some flat bleed damage over 3 seconds. So if you're playing like a bleed character, I suppose, especially in the early on, it's going to be pretty good. Let's check out one of the tier 2 constellations right over here. Let's get some green so that like it lights up. How many more do I need? I need one more green. Let's take this one. There we go. It's going to be called Iron, Guardian of the Celestial Gates. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. This is going to be one of my favorite ones that are being that is being added to the game. Trust me. So we have like the first node, 40% elemental damage. I do make a lot of elemental characters for sure. Secondary, giving you some shield damage block percentage, pretty low, especially if you compare it to like Scarab over there. I think you're getting about 20% from there. There's only like 8% from here in tier 2. But on top of that, it has like persistence. Now from here it starts ramping up, and it ramps up pretty good. So health effect increase armor for percentage, and that is completely multiplicative, by the way. The percentages, they go out of their fucking minds, especially if you have a good flat. And as we talked about before, those type of stuff are going to be buffing the flat ridiculously good. Might as well say that like it will be a little bit easier to make better armored characters thanks to these additions, to be honest with you. Some flat elemental damage that is obviously adding to your weapon damage, guys. On top of that, damage block once again, so it ends up actually being more than the Scarab in this case. Total, yes. Elemental damage 50%, elemental resistances, and 6% armor. So in total we have 10% armor so far from this thing. And then lastly, we have an active that is called Hyrian's Glare. 30% chance when hit it activates. 2-second recharge, so it has a 2-second internal cooldown, 10 meter range, sorry. It's pretty big, 10-meter range. The blinding glare of the Celestial Guardian falls upon your foes, sowing confusion among their ranks. 100% chance to confuse target for 1 second. 70% weapon damage. So is this, what do you think? Is this like a single target to 10-meter range, or is this like an explosion? See, stuff like this I'm gonna need to probably play to understand, obviously. But it does look incredibly powerful, not only because it is utilizing your weapon damage, that is incredibly important, 70% as well, so it will be able to like lifesteal for you. It's going to be able to like, you know, apply those, if you're especially a character that has like a good strong weapon, it's going to be scaling from your weapon pretty good as well. It will obviously use these like 12, you know, in this case 12, obviously it will get buffed up on your character and it will look a lot better too at the end game. Instead of being 12, it will add on top of that as well, so it's pretty good, pretty good. This is a really, really good constellation that's being added. The secondary that I'm going to be showing is my next favorite in line, so we need like purple, apparently. Let's get some purple from here. What else do we need? Some blue and some yellow. Let's take this one. What else do we need? 2 more. Yeah. Let's take 5 more. Here we go. Yeah. Azavika, Eternal Sands, physical damage and pierce damage. 90 armor, you guys. 90 armor now. I am gonna go ahead and say that this is like a tier 2 to tier 3. Is it like a tier 3? I don't know. Is it really, really hard to build up to this? Simply because like it's split into 3 colors. In some cases, it might be hard. In some cases, it might actually turn out to be pretty fucking easy to build up to this. I'm not gonna go ahead and like, you know, theory craft that right now, but I could honestly say that like it might actually turn out to be, you know, easy to like build up to this Azraka constellation over here. It's definitely possible. What was the build up to this, by the way? 8 green and 6 purples. It does end up paying like 2 purple to blue, however. It's not too bad. I suppose like 8 green could be annoying, but then again, remember like 8 green is kind of okay for like an elemental build, especially. You're gonna always have elemental storm as an elemental build, right? That's already 6 green, so you know, you guys like just 2 more plus. It should be okay to build up to it. The next pointer in line, which I cannot stress how important, like how big this node is. This is just ridiculous node. And on top of that, you have another 180 health, 50 defensibility and movement speed. The movement speed is kind of irrelevant, I suppose, for this big of a constellation. I would say so, it needs, but you know, some characters, they definitely have a questionable time finding some movement speed. Like my Craig set Battle Mage was having a hard time finding that 130% movement speed, definitely, but it did find it. Defensibility 50 again, so that adds up to 100 in this case. Attack speed and cast speed, 6%. Not too bad. Attack speed is actually pretty hard to get in Constellations and Grim Dawn. So this one is actually giving you 10%, but it requires you to be like a 200 build, obviously. Revenant, very hard to go to, usually, with most of the characters. Because of the 8 red, and then obviously very deep into it. Bonus pets there, that doesn't work for the character, that's a proc. You're understanding what I'm saying here, probably. So it is very, very unique, the attack speed and the cast speed from the Constellations. Now we have one more source for it. Next one is a flat pierce damage with 100% both physical and pierce. The last one is the proc of it. The Shifting Sense is capable of reducing the target's defensibility for 3 seconds. It's not minus, just like in the resist reduction. Same rules apply to, like, you know, reducing the target's offensibility or reducing the target's defensibility as well. If it's not minus, that means that like you can only have one of these sources. So this is going to be only one. So if you have something like this that's coming from like a skill or something and it's higher than this in this case, it will definitely overwrite it. I want you to pay attention to something. It has good values and it has like 40% crit damage. It's like a good proc. It's definitely a good proc. It doesn't necessarily almost have any cooldown at all either. What does it try to do? I'm not going to talk about it that much because it's really hard to understand from the flavor text. Sometimes you read this, try to understand this, and then you go into the game and you're like, holy shit, that's how it works. So I'll keep that away, but it obviously scales from a little bit of weapon, and then on top of that, physical and piercing. That's not a surprise. Surprising part was like the proc, as I said, the reduction to offensive ability and chance to impair the aim of the target for 3 seconds. Is kind of, I suppose. Let's check out one of the tier 3s that is coming up, which is called the Korvaak, the Eldritch Sun. Need some blues to see that in action. Let's take this away for now. Like I can commit into the blues. How many more do we need, guys? 6 more blues we need. Yeah. So 30% all damage. Pretty underwhelming first click, I should say. It's also buffing the pets. 6% to both you and your pets. That's okay, I suppose. Chaos resistance sometimes can be pretty tricky to find, especially in the late game. Crit damage and ultimate both your pets and yourself. I am not really sure if this would be worth clicking. It might very well be. I think it would come down to like what sort of character you're playing and like how is your devotions looking. So what I'm trying to say is like if I'm missing 1 point to like activate, let's say, I'm gonna make something up, but if I'm missing like 1 point to activate Elemental Storm, then I'm gonna need to like take it away from there. That's all I mean. For a tier 3, is this click good? Probably. 8% crit damage is pretty big, I guess. 5% offensive ability, however, is really big. I like that note. It is also giving it to your pets, right? Yeah. Alright, so the last click is another proc. 100% chance on critical attack this time. It needs to crit. It passes through the enemies from 1 meter radius, 6 projectiles. The Eldritch Gaze of Korvaak falls upon you in an expanding ring, piercing through any foes unfortunate enough to be in your way. It has a chance to petrify them as well for 1.5 seconds, reduces target's offensivity by 5 and defensivity by 5 as well. Same rules apply to what I said with the offensivity reduction to the enemy from the shifting sense as well, you guys. To this one, it looks alright. It is really hard for me to speak about this tier 3. I'm gonna say the same thing for the next one that I'm gonna talk about, the Yugol. It will be really hard for me to speak about, but one thing that I can tell you is that this node right over here, the 5% offensibility for both your pets and yourself, pretty big. Definitely this node as well goes hand to hand, thanks to like being, you know, having that much more offensibility, having like more crit damage, obviously, really good. The rest of the nodes are kind of like meh, and I really need to see the Eye of Korvaak in action, rock in action, to be able to, you know, comment on that. Let's check out this one. We're gonna need like 7 reds and 20 greens. Let's fix that up. So it's reds and greens, I said, right? Let's see. Some reds from there. 7. Let's get some greens. More do we need? 2 more? Alright, so this one's called Yugol the Insatiable Knights. 25 offensive ability, 80% cold damage, 80% acid splits here, and again 25 offensive ability. Let's compare it to the Dying Gods when it comes to the offensive ability pluses. Per node, it actually is a little bit more valuable. In total, it might fall back. Vitality resistance 25%. Vitality resistance is always something that I'm extremely, you know, in ease to like complete. So this, when I look at it, it looks a little bit, you know, not so valuable, but it might turn out to be okay too for some characters, obviously. Reflected damage reduction is quite okay. meh node, I guess. Percentage spirit. Guys, I want you to remember, like, they buffed the spirit and the cunning in Forgotten Gods, so the new stats are going to end up actually giving health, just like physique. So that's going to be pretty interesting. In that case, like, I'm gonna need to, like, actually need to play in Theorycraft, which stats is going to be a little bit, you know, more valuable than the others. Don't want to comment on that right now, but yeah, what I'm trying to say is that, like, in this case, percentage spirit is not that bad, at least, because it will turn out to give a little bit of HP as well. 5 gold, 5 acid, flat, life leech, well, life steal, and life leech resistance as well. I like this node. This node is pretty big for a character. Acid and cold at the same time. Nightblade. So black blood of Yugol. Black blood of Yugol spills from your wounds, festering upon the battlefield. So 30% chance when hit. Well, 30% chance when you take damage, basically. Seeks out the foes to consume within his eternal darkness. 1 second skill recharge. 6 summon limit. And when it procs, it only summons 1, I think, and it lives for about like 6 seconds. So in a fight, you could actually end up having 6 of them in total anyways. The attributes are okay. It puts like minus health regeneration 100%, minus movement speed. Deals cold and acid AoE damage to 3-meter radius. This is so interesting. It's such a weird thing. I like it. So I suppose it kinda is like a fetid bull, but it is capable of... It is, right? It's a sort of like fetid bull, but we can have 6 of them, I think. And they do have their like HP, so maybe they will be able to actually like gain aggro every now and then. Interesting, I like it. I really like it. So far, the only thing that I didn't like that much is probably like the Korvaak and the Night Talent. I'm gonna need to definitely see them in action to comment further. Let's look into Ulzad here, Herald of Korvaak. This one requires you to have 8 purple and 6 blue. Pays back green and purple. Paying back green is really interesting, right? So it starts with like physical damage plus 10 defense ability. Really low. Poison and acid and cold resistances. Cold resistances appear there. Health, chaos resistance, pity resistance so far. 80 resistance and health. So for a tier 2 it is really defensive so far. Except this node, the 40% physical damage. Trying to make sure that you're like a physical guy to enter. Otherwise your click is pretty much wasted. Flat physical, eternal trauma and physical damage percentages. I'm out of picks, guys. Help. Heal. Alright. Let's see. And the last node was on Decree, 20% chance on attack. 240 armor for 10-second duration, 22-second recharge. That is pretty good of a proc. Good flat physical damage, good physical. Good, I really like this. What is this? All sad. I really like this. You know, like you probably heard me talking about procs like this before when I talk about the thing that like 10-second uptime. And then, you know, like 20-second downtime that would come up to like 30% uptime sort of thing. But like my point of view is the fact that like when you charge into an important battle, this one kicks in usually. And then it stays with you for 10 seconds. And then in 10 seconds, you're usually done if you have a really good character. Unless you're playing like a Crucible or something. But I mean, so you probably understand my point of view. So in that case, you will be taking a lot of value from Ulzad's Decree. Versus a character or versus an enemy that is like, you know, hard, or opponent that is you know, valuable. Probably understand what I'm talking. So I like stuff like this. There should be more. There should definitely be more. Really like it. Am I forgetting anything? It's I'm actually not sure. Yo, I think we have actually checked out every single one of them, guys. Okay, so I'm really curious. I'm gonna keep the question simple. Which one is your favorite? Which one do you think is the most valuable one? I want to talk about like a little bit more with what they're trying to do here. If you paid attention, there has been a lot of armor nodes. That is really good for me, simply because like I don't necessarily want to go for Obelisk every single time now, thanks to those little armor nodes added. Definitely. I really like these constellation changes. They're good. Another thing that I want to mention is the fact that like so far the characters, at the very least the last year that I have played, they were really heavy blue and red. I don't want to necessarily discuss like why it was, but you know, a little bit of like purple, a little bit of like green. It could be like a little bit of yellow as well, just a tiny bit, little bit for me personally, at least for the bar type reason. But for the other reasons, it was like heavy blue, like sometimes even like a character that has nothing to do with like, you know, either Vitality or Chaos going for like Dying God. That is how heavy it was. Pay attention to the build up, like they don't necessarily give you like blue build up anymore. Maybe like there's an 8 over there. Other than that, we have like an 18 over there that, you know, companies a 10 yellow, green, sorry. So it definitely requires like heavy green investments. So the colors are changing just a tiny bit. And their payments are, especially the big ones, they're not so much. So they're like big constellations. I'm going to be stopping the video right over here. Again, let me ask you, which one do you think is like the most valuable addition to this constellation tree here? Which one is going to be your favorite, it looks like? The last thing that we didn't talk about is this thing. The Lotus. I've been searching for something. Here we go. What do you do, Lotus? It's a tier 1 that requires yellow and it ends up giving you green and yellow actually. That is quite unique payment as well, isn't it? It actually is. I really like that too. Health, percentage energy, vitality resistance, health energy, health and healing effect increase, energy regen, and energy regen +1 as well. Are both percentage and flat increase to it. I really like Lotus. It is so interesting. You know, this is one of those. Depending on the character, again, you could actually like end up keeping this at the late game build too. But if not, it will be very important while leveling, because like it will just give you that HP that you're missing and the energy regeneration that you're missing too. Definitely. So you can definitely like take it out later on if you don't necessarily like the color payments, or if you cannot, you know, when you theory craft your build, if you cannot necessarily like fit this in, would be completely fine. But I'm 100% sure some of the builds are going to be activating with the little bit of like, you know, yellow and green that this thing is giving, and which is again really unique. The payment, that is. This is going to be it from me, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time with more Grim Dawn. There's some other content coming up your way as well. Catch you around, dudes.